So I want to play that sound real quick of Steph Curry on the Gilbert Arenas podcast discussing who is the best point guard of all time.
Are you the best point guard ever?
Yes. Yes. It's me and Magic? Is that the conversation?
Because, as we can look at stats all day, right? We can look at stats and try to judge. I wasn't around with Magic.
Me either.
I know, right? So
I have so much respect.
I know there's not a lot of 6'9" point guard. No one's trying to. I'm thinking about the 90s growing up. There was nobody trying to be a 6'9" point guard, right? I mean, it just. But I can witness and watch every kid trying to be Curry.
Steph Curry has to be the only guy who'll run through the finish line, break through the tape, and then just kind of run backwards. He said, let me back this up a little bit, because he started off by saying I'm the greatest. It's like, yeah, me and Magic. Yeah, that's the conversation, and then he just backs up off all of it, right?
Yeah.
How do you view these conversations historically? Because, you look at a depth chart, he's listed as point guard, but positions in basketball have evolved so much over time that if someone wanted to argue, LeBron James is actually the best point guard of all time because he initiates all the offense, and he'll then defend the best player on the opposing team. And he has been listed as a point guard prior to in his career. How do you view these conversations?
I think despite the evolution and all that stuff, they still shake out pretty much. Like LeBron initiates offense, but a lot of times he's on the wing and someone else initiates and then he gets it, and then a bunch of other stuff happens. So I think most people are very comfortable saying he's a small forward, just like we're very comfortable saying that Michael Jordan was a 2 and Tim Duncan was a center despite playing power forward for stretches of his career. Ultimately, I think, honestly, these conversations are all kind of ridiculous. They're just all they do is exist to allow us and Gilbert and everyone else to have these conversations and talk about it and fill time.
So when they go, as I continue to fill time, when they say that a 6'9" guard, you can't mimic a 6'9" guard, you can't be that tall, but wasn't the appeal of Magic just the fast break and run? Because before that, or 70s, there weren't a lot of fast break basketball. It wasn't the highlight of basketball as it was with Showtime.
They played up tempo. They played a lot more up tempo, and they seeded a lot of the play calling because 70s. Here's the thing: 70s NBA prior to the merger with the ABA and NBA was incredibly every play is scripted and very regimented. And that's why I always say, if you watch basketball in 1974, NBA and ABA, and I ask you which one looks more closely like what we see today, you'd point to ABA every time. It has a three-point line. It's a blend of scripted and improvisational. It's athleticism. It's up and down and all that stuff. And meanwhile, the NBA was set plays and guys are, playing very kind of strict version of basketball. But obviously, the influx of the ABA guys started to make the tempo go up higher and higher, and then you get to the 80s, and Magic and Bird, they open the doors. But again, it's crazy to me that you say, hey, man, there's only been one of this kind of guy. See, how great could he be? Isn't that the very definition of greatness, where it's no one could even try to be like me?
Yeah, I don't think of what makes Steph Curry greater is because I can shoot a three. No. I mean, he does it greater than anybody that's ever done it, but I am almost probably more impressed with what Kevin Durant does at his size, because it seems like nobody else can do that.
Magic played 12 years in the league. He went to the finals 9 times.
9 times.
That's
crazy.
But then here's he went 9 times in 12 years. Okay. But also that means we're counting his second year when he only played 30-some-odd games because he had that injury that we see in winning time that he's trying to recover from. Also, we're counting the last year when he came back off of HIV-positive land to come and spur the Lakers to get to the playoffs in about 30 games or so.
Spoiler alert.
So really, you take out the 2 seasons where he played 30-some-odd games, he went to the finals 9 out of 10 times. And then that 10th time, they lost in the conference finals. Dude, there's it's one of those things where it's insane that anyone would make this comparison. I'm not even saying Magic is a better point guard, as in doing the duties of a point guard better than Steph. I'm saying Magic's a better player.
So we measured the results then? Or because, I mean...
Any metric you use. 3-time MVP. 3-time finals MVP, right? All-star MVP. All-NBA, first team 8 times, right? Again, if we take out the 2 years where clearly he wasn't going to get it because he was hurt, 8 times out of 10 years he was first team All NBA. Unless you start saying, oh, but like the game different. This dude won Finals MVP as a 20-year-old.
Well, the place that people are going to go is, and this is unfair because it's not a one-on-one sport, but have him play one-on-one. Give Steph Curry the ball first, see if Magic ever gets the ball back. What do you think?
Give Magic the ball first, see if Steph ever gets it back.
Agreed.
So that's not a good enough kind of argument. I think when you talk about Magic Johnson, you're talking about a level of success and winning and excellence in the game that very few people, if any, can even approach.
What's Magic's go-to in the half court?
Hook shot.
Hook shot, yeah. The junior sky hook.
He hit enough of those? Or did he just hit some signature ones?
It was part of his offense. Okay. I mean, look at his field goal percentage. The guy was incredible.
I'm asking for memory, by the way. Yeah. I'm not questioning the greatness of Magic Johnson.
He was dominant. He was a dominant player, and people often point to the scoring. That's not what they needed him to do. He had a year where he averaged like 24 points a game. He could average 28. He could average 30 if he wanted. Now, this is in no way like I'm trying to dump on Steph. Steph's amazing. Like the year he won unanimous MVP, he led the league in scoring, shooting 50, 40, 90 from the field. 50, 40, 90. Now, here's the crazy part, right? I say he led the league in scoring. I was like, yeah. He shot 50, 40, 90. Like, wow, it's amazing, but he is a great player. Okay. He led the league in steals that year.
Really?
Nobody ever talks about that. He
that.
led the league in steals per game.
When they asked the question, we all kind of conceded, well, there's only 2 people in that debate. Most people, when you ask who's the best point guard of all time, that's a consensus. It's those 2. Who's on the medal stand, like asking, hoping that they could be talked about in this discussion with Gilbert Arenas? And why is it Mario Chalmers?
Well, what's Oscar
I'll hang
Robertson?
up and listen.
Delhi.
What's the big O?
Delhi.
Is he like in the LeBron conversation where he's not a point guard, but he is a point guard?
I think then it gets really blurry, right? Like with those 2 guys, they are so great, it doesn't really matter, right? But then after that, then you start and also they both played in eras of incredible competitiveness, right? Like Magic played in the league when there was a bunch of teams that were stacked with Hall of Famers, right? Steph obviously playing in this era. Oscar, again, like I'm of the belief that, hey, when we talk about players, we're trying to compare players. If you played before the merger, we love you, we respect you. You and Jim Brown and everyone who played pre-AFL, NFL, you guys, we respect the hell out of you, but you sit over there. Because I can't gauge what they're doing versus like what's happening in the sport past that merger when the game changed as a result. So I leave Oscar out of it, and I go to you. Ask who else is in that medal stand?
Yeah, who else is on the medal stand?
Isaiah Thomas, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash.
There you go.
I was going to say Jason Kidd before Nash, huh?
I think.
I mean, Nash has as many MVPs as Steph Curry has.
I know.
Amazing.
I know. And look, I owe everything to Steve. I think Jason being a better defensive player and obviously a bigger guard and rebounding made him a better player in a way that I think Steve obviously was a way better shooter. Steve, we used to say before Steph, like Steve's the best shooter.
Did you say Stockton?
I don't think Stockton is. I think Stockton's behind those guys.
Absolutely.
Great player. Great player.
When you consider defensively too.
Great player, but I think he's behind those guys. I think like what Jason did for a team offense isn't quite as good as what Steve did for a team offense, but Jason also brought the defense.
Is there anything Chris Paul can do with the rest of his career to get in this conversation?
I don't think so.
6 championships straight.
Even then, I'd be like,
But yet, in terms of ability, in terms of basketball ability, because like people will put like Andre Iguodala will put Kyrie Irving maybe on the top of the list of the greatest ever, but Chris Paul, without some of the unlucky injuries, and maybe he's on the right, like he was on the path to be top 2 with Magic, was he not?
no, not top 2.
Really?
No, I don't think Chris Paul was on the path to be the greatest or second greatest point guard.
Ooh.
Like, like to me, Chris was on the path of being with Jason, with Steve Nash, with
Starbury.
Steph was on that path, but then like it kind of fell apart.
I think he was revered to the point where, especially when he got to L.A., it was almost discussed as an inevitability that he would become maybe top 3. He had all the classic point guard, Chris Paul, all the classic point guard skills, such a floor general, like every element that you want from a point guard, except for maybe, the extra height.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure like a lot of people, I'm pretty sure I remember reading a story that said he might be the greatest point guard of all time already, and that was like 6 years ago.
Do you think, so when Chris got to LA, what year was that? He was, what year was he in the league? He was,
It just does also feel like with the guys like Chris Paul, there is a issue that he's going to have with Steph Curry being in the league at the same time. So like there's some baseball players who had this same sort of issue where Albert Pujols played a majority of the beginning of his career when Barry Bonds was doing all of the unbelievable things that took away from it.
2005.
yeah. So that was.
I was watching a video of that, that chef that reacts to people doing dumb things. It's this guy.
Oh, Chef Reactions.
Yeah,
that's my guy. He was on Cinephobe.
He's watching someone make soup in a hotel bathroom.
Yeah.
It's in a sink. It's weird.
Yeah, Paul arrived in New Orleans in 2005, was there till 2011, and then moved to Los Angeles in 2011 and was in Los Angeles for 6 years.
I don't think anyone ever looked at Chris Paul as perhaps the best player in the league at any point of his career. And maybe that's what Jeremy's referring to is like, like you were great, but you happen to play. Because, he led the league in assists 5 times. He led the league in steals 5 times.
He got in the league in 2005.
Yeah.
LeBron got in the league in 2003.
Yep.
There's probably only one MVP to go around.
No, I get it.
Who's the best player ever to play at the wrong time?
Charles Barkley.
To play at the wrong time?
That sure
Yeah.
seems like an example being sandwiched between the beginning of LeBron and then the beginning of Steph right after that. That's not great for
Man,
Chris
Barkley,
Paul.
Barkley played at a pretty great time considering he couldn't shoot.
Yeah, I would say Tracy McGrady.
I would say Reggie Miller and Mitch Richmond.
Shoot from the outside, I mean.
Yeah.
He's a
Lucy.
pretty money mid-range player.
Lucy, we got 20 seconds. Do you have a top 5 point guards ever list?
No, but Chris
Wow.
Paul did go to my high school. And
What?
he would-
What?
Yeah, he would come
There's
back.
no
and-
basketball in Carolina.
Yeah, Wake Forest basketball. He would come back and he would do like a Q&A, and if you answered questions right about him, he'd give you money.
What?
That feels like a violation. I don't know
Yeah, it
what
definitely
kids
was.
camps. I don't know what that is. There's no way that could be legal. Somebody investigate Chris Paul. Well, you're giving kids money. That's crazy.